Hello, hello, what is going on YouTube friends? Phoenix61 here with some more Skull and Bones shenanigans, and as you can see, we are in the Helm office today. So Season 2, we are kind of pretty deep into Season 2, I would say, at this point. So kind of what I wanted to get at is my thoughts and feelings, strategy on how to farm 8s in this season, because quite a few things have changed and the dynamic is a little bit different, right? First thing I do when I come into the Helm office is I load up my distillery and or the laboratory over in the East Indies, right? Just making sure that something's being produced, right? So we all know how to go over to the the liaison missions and stuff to get Helm materials, right? So I won't go through that. But as you can see, we already have all of Africa and the Red Isle unlocked. And you can see thus far I'm picking and choosing which factories to fund and upgrade, as you can kind of see here, right? So, and then of course off to the left, if you look at the ship symbol is kind of the one we're focusing on at the moment, right? That is how many fleet ships I have in the works, right? So these factories that have the little anchor down at the bottom left of the, like this one here, those are factories that we have a ship assigned, right? So I will go into how we're picking these and how we're building these ships too, because there's some things to note there. But just like last season, some of these factories along the coast of Africa here have just massive amounts of trade routes connecting them, and those are kind of where you want to go. That's where you're gonna make the most money. That's where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck, right? The 8's production rate is going to be the most, and the cost to fund the factories is going to be the least, right? Like, when it all pans out, right? So Harufu, like, this is one of the most profitable factories, if not the most profitable one, and we can produce 102 an hour right now. There are still some Helm upgrades that I'm working through, so I think I can get that a little bit higher. But so what I'm doing is I'm focusing on sort of the factories that have the most trade routes, that can be the most profitable. I'm upgrading those, and I'm linking a fleet ship to those factories, right? The other thing I'm doing is I'm upgrading factories that are just convenient, right? So Fort Dulise and Grand Fort are two locations that pretty frequently have fort plunder options for them, right? And of course, as I'm recording, they're not in here, right? There's all these East Indies ones, right? And you can do those East Indies ones. The reason I like Grand Fort and Fort Dulise is because they're super quick and easy to solo complete them, right? Like, hands down, if you've got a decent ship, you just don't die, and it's a guaranteed, right? So what I do is I stack those missions. Every time I see Fort Dulise or Grand Fort, I'm grabbing those, and then when you go and plunder it, then you complete all of them at once, right? So I'm upgrading the factories along the way from Fort Dulise and from Grand Fort here. So, like, for example, I'm not linking fleet ships to these because I go and frequent them myself, and then Pilot Bay Weaver, same thing. So basically what I do is I go plunder the fort, collect the 8s, and then collect the 8s of the factory that's on the way back to the port, right? And then, of course, now with Season 2, you can fast travel with 8s now. So you just go to the nearest outpost, whatever, fast travel back to Saint or the East Indies, and then 8s are yours, right? So that's kind of the generalized strategy that I'm going for here. The other thing to, of course, go in and check out, let's see where we're at on the leaderboard as of recording here. There's 67 days left. We're at place 1300 some. What was nice with the upgrades is the smugglers operations stuff. This did not get reset. I was kind of expecting this to get reset, and it did not. But basically this one, if you don't have all the upgrades here, if you didn't get them all last season, I would work on these because that's going to make a big difference in refining raw materials, right? But the one I would focus on first, if you haven't already done that, is this Empire Management one. So the upgrades that are all the way over to the right, because these are going to benefit all and every factory that you unlock, right? So this isn't specific to any region or faction or anything like that. And then this sort of upgrade tree, whatever you want to call it, also has the ability to unlock and own more manufactories, right? So something different about this season, if you don't go through here and do these upgrades, when you do a hostile takeover or something, it just won't work and you won't get it. You just won't own the manufactory, and it's kind of confusing. So if you didn't know to go and look in here, you gotta do some upgrades in the Empire Management, and then you can own more factories, right? So then once you get to the end, then you can own them all, right? Dutch Merchant Company and Dominion of Rampa, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. I haven't done any upgrades there yet because I've been focusing on Coast of Africa and Red Isle, right? So I'm only digging into the upgrades for the Coast of Africa and Compagnie Royale. We've got some of those just because those are the factions that typically own those factories, right? Clan of Fair owns some of them too, so I do need to be putting some money into this one to help us out a little bit. But I won't sit here and make you watch me push the upgrade button all the way through. But yeah, that's the next one I need to work on, right? So so that's been my strategy thus far, which is almost like very similar to last season, right? I kind of ignored the East Indies because there just aren't that many profitable, the most profitable ones are over on the Coast of Africa, right? Like, so I'm doing those, I'm picking those up when they come up for, as helm opportunities or hostile takeovers or whatever. And then I'm assigning fleet ships to those factories and upgrading and focusing on upgrading those. And then anything else that's convenient, any factories that I tend to go to regularly, those would be my other choices, and then manually pick up there. Now, when it comes to building the fleet ships, this is the strategy I've been taking here. So some of these medium ships, specifically like the Bark or like the Brigantine and the Sambuck, like if you look over on the right, Greenheart Plank, Magnetite Ingot, Roselle Cloth, like those are all more rare materials, right? So I'm not building those. I am building all Vanguard Snows, like for my fleet, right? Because this Juniper Plank, Zinc, like these materials are much easier to come by, and you can also buy most of them at the in the black market from the Helm Bartender for pieces of 8 if you really needed to. But so these other ones have these more specialized, like Magnetite Ingot. Like you can't buy that, right? So like you have to go to the locations where it's available, buy it and plunder it, right? You can't buy it from the black market, right? So this one is what I'm doing. We're gonna buy a snow, and I'm gonna kind of walk you through how I outfit. Because you want to be able to build a lot of these, right? So you don't want to waste a lot of valuable material. You basically want to try and get it up to ideally a level 12 ship, while spending the least amount of valuable materials, right? So part of my strategy here has been, this is why I was like, make sure you've got stuff refining in the distillery and the laboratory, because we're going to buy things like Skurlock's Long Nines from Skurlock or Rama's Legacy, right? The higher end weapons that have the higher gear scores. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this, the convoy here, so you do get the armor pieces, right? The, what's it called? The Royal Custodian, right? From some of these world events. So I do recommend going and doing those here and there. Sometimes there's ones over here, but I think I've gotten like 2 Royal Custodians by doing some of these convoy ones, right? So those are the armor pieces I'm going to be equipping for most of them. The other thing you can do is if you're you know, if you're lazy like I was in the moment of recording this. But yeah, so here's Royal Custodians. You can see I've got a ton of them, and they're all equipped on ships because they're all equipped on my fleet ships, right? So this one's equipped on Fleet 5. All right, I basically just numbered them because I don't need to name them anything special. But basically, you know, the only downside here is it's a 400 gear score up in the top right as opposed to 420 for the, you know, the best ones. This Kawaka, if I'm saying that right, I'm sure I'm not, but this one's 380. You can build these from the blacksmith if you really, you know, don't want to go for farm Royal Custodians here and there, right? Or even this one here, the Stormwoven Symphony, and the other one next to it, I think are available at the black market for sovereigns. So those are always options as well. I'm just going to do that for now. I've got plenty of sovereigns. We've been farming 8s with this strategy, and we're loaded, right? So, but yeah, the other thing that you'll want to keep an eye out for is what weapons you can craft, right? So you kind of don't want to load up on everything good. Basilisks 3, right? These are gear score 110. That's pretty good, but they do use magnetite ingots and green heart planks, right? So those a little more rare. You can do the Zamzamas. They also take magnetite ingots and worm's breath, right? So like just material wise, I was like, man, like once I get these building, I'm gonna go through those materials pretty quickly, and I want to use those for other things, like specifically upgrading ships. So ship upgrades use quite a few of those, right? So, yeah, Moon's Mag you could do, but yeah, more magnetite ingot, you know. So, I do think the one that I've been grabbing is the Leopold 3. But again, yes, it uses magnetite ingot and garnet scepter, or saltpeter, whatever, yeah, that thing. And then same here, termites 3 is also a decent gear score for ox weapons. But yeah, so I've been spending my magnetite ingot making these Leopold 3s, right? But so that's, for the most part, if I don't have something that I'm already not using and I need an ox weapon to try and level it up, right, to try and get the ship leveled up, that's what I'm building, right? So just whatever you have, I guess go with whatever materials you have the most of, right, and build, you know, use those up first, right? But yeah, and then of course, you know, I had plenty of weapons first starting out, but then once you build like 3 or 4 ships, then you're starting to be like, okay, now I'm out of weapons, right? So especially if you want them at level 12. So what I'm doing is, you know, this is where helm materials are coming in handy and being very highly focused on getting these, you know, you can buy Skurlock's Long 9s, and those are, what, 120 level? And you get those for the Gold Skull rum. So I've been selling the Gold Skull gin to him in order to sort of fund myself as far as silver. And then I have been buying the Skurlock Long 9s for 1,000 Gold Skull rum a piece when I need them, right? If I absolutely am desperate for another weapon, right? So these are, yeah. So the gear score is kind of what we're after there, which is the 120. And that's super helpful in getting your ship rank up to 12 so that it's low risk when it's transporting pieces of 8 for you, right? So we'll go in here and equip some weapons. I'm not going to use the Carronades. I only have those 2. I used up all my like bow weapons, like the unique flamethrowers and stuff too on my first on my first few ships. So we'll equip the Long 9s. You may not need all Long 9s, so we did equip a Basilisk there that I'm not using. And then, you know, you could use whatever you've got. You know, if you've got the LeFleur and you haven't been using them, you don't go ahead because it's 58, right? Because the gear score is what you need to get it up to level 12, so the higher the better. But, you know, obviously you need to have some balance. These, you could be buying these from the black market for sovereigns, but of course, you know, sovereigns are kind of tough to come by, right? So I've been making Leopold 3s, right? That's what I've been doing as I've been running out of items to equip, right? And then furniture kind of matters the least here, because for the most part, you know, equip one major furniture, which gets you, you know, a 50 gear score, and then you know, kind of whatever for the other slots. So I've really just been using whatever I have more of, or things that I know, you know, munitions mixer, I know I can craft that at the carpenter, right? So otherwise, other than that, I've been going in here and okay, we've got, you know, 3 culverin grinders, right? So I'll use one of those, just because if I at some point do want it for an actual build, I know I've got leftovers, right? Double planked hull, I know you can buy, you know, you can craft that at the carpenter, right? So you see what we're getting at here, right? So use what you got. If you've been hoarding things like I have, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But as you can see with the last furniture piece attached here, we are getting right up to barely level 12 down in the bottom right corner, as you can see. And that's what you're going for. I think most factories, they ask for like a minimum ship rank of 11, so then putting it at a 12 gets you in the low risk category. That way you don't have your ship damaged, you don't lose any 8s or anything like that when they're going and farming 8s for you, right? So I will go in, and I have been naming all of my ship's fleet and then the, you know, the next number, right? So we were at number 10 at the time of recording, right? Because we had 9 before when we were looking at the map. And then we'll go in, and what I'm going to do is look and see which factories we want to, or which factory I want to link this one to, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for one that's highly profitable, that has a lot of trade routes, right? And then that way it's collecting those 8s for me constantly, whether I'm online playing or not. And so Bandari is probably our best bet. We can do up to 83 pieces of 8 an hour on that one, right? So go in, find your new ship that you made, and the mistake that I made was I didn't switch out of it, right? So you need to not be in that ship. So I will go and grab my Sandbook that I play with most of the time. Then we should be able to go back into the helm menu, find the factory that we're going for here, hit manage, tab over to ships, and then we should see fleet 10. There it is, right? So you hold X or whatever button it is for you based on what you're playing on, and then now that ship is assigned, right? So that's been my strategy. As far as, I think that's probably where a lot of people are struggling at this point, trying to farm 8. So but I've literally built all, you can see here, like these are all of the ships. They're all snows, and they're all very similar loadouts, or a hodgepodge. The first few I was like, I got some leftover Lafleurs or whatever, you know, whatever I had that I wasn't using. But yeah, so now over on the left side, you can see we are at 10 of 20. I don't know if 20 is the max amount of fleet ships you can have or not. This one too, this Ankahana, like this location, I upgraded this one because this is the only place you can get Sinew string from. You can get, excuse me, you can get Sinew string from some of the world events and some of the bosses as well. But I was going to that location and doing the plunder to like sort of farm it. And so that's why I upgraded that location. And then of course the one that's right across from St. Anne, that's not a bad idea either. Palisade Bay, that's not a bad idea, right? Because they're close to, you know, I'm over there pretty frequently. So I'm in those areas frequently. So I've leveled up those, and then those are the ones that I tend to manually go to because half the time I'm just driving by them anyway, right? And then any of the ones that are sort of the more profitable ones, you know, that have a lot of trade routes, right? And so, to get those trade route bonuses, you do need to make sure you unlock the other, you know, factories that are linked to them. So, you know, go and do those helm opportunities, the takeovers, legendary heists, etc. But then if it's not a profitable factory, or if it's not one that you'd be frequently visiting, you know, you just need to own it. You don't need to upgrade it at all. Just leave it there. So that's why a lot of mine were still at level 1 and we weren't touching them. We were only focusing on ones that I visit often and ones that have lots of trade routes, right? So that is my strategy thus far for Season 2, guys. Any suggestions, comments, other ideas that you have, please do leave them down in the comments. I always enjoy trying to, you know, sort of experiment with people's ideas when I think they're good, right? So let me know what you think. And then make sure you're following the channel, and we'll have more Skull and Bones videos in the future. Thanks, guys.